The screaming started before anyone saw what caused it. Shoes slapped against tile. Carts clattered to the ground, and children were scooped up as shoppers stampeded toward the sliding doors. The Briarwood Shopping Center, usually a hushed little hub of normalcy, became a funnel of chaos. By the time Sheriff Isaac Ward arrived, the building stood hollow, fluorescent lights buzzing over half-empty aisles and abandoned purses. But the terror hadn't been left inside. His K-9, Rocco, nose to the wind, pulled hard toward the parking lot. What the dog led him to made the panic inside feel like a prelude. The late afternoon sun painted Briarwood in pale gold, its edges softened by storm clouds gathering at the horizon. Sheriff Isaac Ward stood at the curb of the shopping center, squinting against the glare. His badge weighed heavy on his chest, not because of its metal, but because of the 100 questions he knew would soon come pouring from the mouths of frightened townsfolk. He tugged Rocco's leash as a German shepherd paced, ears sharp, tail stiff. The animal didn't care for questions. He dealt only in truths, the kind you could smell, the kind you couldn't argue with. "Easy, boy," Isaac muttered, though his own pulse hadn't slowed since the dispatcher's call. Crowd disturbance. Possible armed suspect inside the mall. Yet the mall now sat in eerie silence, save for the rustle of paper bags rolling across the lot like tumbleweeds. No gunshots, no smoke, no alarms, just a suffocating absence of normal. Deputy Marla Kane jogged up, her dark ponytail swaying behind her. She was younger than Isaac by 15 years, her eyes always burning with something between ambition and defiance. "Inside's clear," she reported, her voice clipped. Security cameras cut out 5 minutes before the panic. Emergency exit on the north side was propped open. No suspect in sight. Isaac ground his jaw. Cameras down, an exit left open. That wasn't coincidence. "Then why'd everyone run?" he asked. Marla shook her head. "Witnesses said someone screamed. A woman near the food court. Nobody saw who or what." Rocco pulled sharply, nearly yanking Isaac off balance. The dog's nose was pressed to the asphalt, weaving between oil stains and candy wrappers. His hackles rose. "He's onto something," Isaac said. "Parking lot." Marla frowned. "Maybe our guy slipped out." Isaac didn't answer. He followed the leash, his boots scuffing against the lot as Rocco quickened his pace. Around them, the aftermath lay scattered. Strollers tipped over, a phone cracked screen down, a child stuffed bear abandoned beneath a lamppost. Isaac's gut churned. He'd seen war zones cleaner than this. Rocco stopped suddenly at a silver sedan near the far end, growling low. His nails scraped against the pavement as he circled the car, barking sharp and furious. "Trunk." Isaac said, his throat tightening. Marla's hand went instinctively to her holster. Could be our guy hiding. Isaac drew his own weapon, the familiar weight steadying his shaking nerves. He nodded at Marla. "On 3. They approached, Rocco snarling beside them. Isaac counted silently, then yanked the trunk release. The lid popped open with a metallic groan. Inside, wedged between a spare tire and a torn grocery bag, was something that stole the air straight from Isaac's lungs. A burlap sack. Dark stains seeped through its coarse weave, and from within a smell, the metallic tang of blood, sharp and undeniable, rose into the evening air. Marla's breath hitched. "Oh, Jesus!" Rocco barked again, a frantic, desperate sound, as if urging him to act faster. Isaac leaned in and, with trembling hands, pulled the sack open. What lay inside wasn't a weapon, nor a body in the way he expected. It was worse. The sack was filled with bones. Small ones. At first glance, they looked like the remains of animals, maybe deer or stray dogs. But Isaac had seen enough in his years to know better. The shape of a femur. The delicate curve of a rib cage far too small to belong to an adult. His vision blurred, his stomach twisted. "God damn it," he whispered. Marla gagged, stumbling back. No, this doesn't happen here. Not in Briarwood." But it had. Isaac reached down, pulling one of the bones into the light. Tiny teeth marks scarred the surface, as though something had gnawed at it. He dropped it back into the sack, his hand shaking violently. Before he could speak, a voice carried across the lot. Sheriff Ward. He looked up to see Henry Mallory, the shopping center's night security guard, hustling toward them. Henry was overweight, his uniform perpetually rumpled, but his wide eyes tonight carried a naked kind of terror. "I didn't see it, Sheriff. I swear," Henry stammered. 1 second the monitors went fuzzy. Next second, people were screaming like hell broke loose. "I thought it was a fire drill until I heard the..." He froze as his eyes landed on the open trunk. His face drained of color. Isaac closed the trunk with a slam, silencing him. "This doesn't leave your lips. Not a word." Henry swallowed hard. "Why, yes, sir." Marla shot Isaac a look. "You think we can keep this quiet?" Half the damn county saw the evacuation. Word's gonna spread fast. Isaac stared past her, toward the line of cars stretching toward the highway. Families were already piling in, engines revving, brake lights glowing red against the dusk. They were desperate to leave, to outrun whatever evil they thought lingered in the mall. But the truth was already here. And Isaac knew from experience, truth was harder to outrun than fear. That night, the sheriff's office conference room felt colder than usual. The walls were lined with faded portraits of past sheriffs, men with stern eyes and stubborn jaws. Isaac sat at the head of the table, Rocco at his feet, ears twitching as if absorbing every word. Deputy Marla spread crime scene photos across the table, her lips pressed tight. The bones from the trunk had been bagged, cataloged, sent to the state lab for analysis. But the image burned deeper than paper could capture. Across from them sat Mayor Evelyn Price, a woman whose iron-gray hair and sharp suits masked a calculating mind. She tapped her manicured nails against the table. "This cannot get out," she said firmly. Isaac rubbed his temples. "With all due respect, Mayor, we're talking about human remains. Children's remains. From the looks of it, this is no small matter to sweep under a rug." Evelyn's eyes hardened. "And if the town believes there's some predator among us, do you know what happens then? Panic. Tourism dries up. Businesses close. People pack up and leave. Briarwood dies, Sheriff." Marla slammed her fist lightly against the table. "Children are dead, and you're worried about property values?" Evelyn didn't flinch. "I'm worried about survival. Of this town, of the people still living here. You'll investigate, of course, quietly, but you will not breathe a word to the press until we know exactly what we're dealing with." Isaac studied her. Evelyn had always been pragmatic, but tonight there was something colder beneath her poise, a knowledge she wasn't sharing. "Mayor," Isaac said slowly, "is there something you know that I don't?" She held his gaze, unblinking. Then she stood, smoothing her skirt. "Do your job, Sheriff. Keep it quiet. That's all I'll say." With that, she swept from the room, leaving the faint scent of her perfume in a silence thick enough to choke on. Marla leaned in close, whispering fiercely. "She knows something." Isaac nodded grimly. "And we're going to find out what." Rocco lifted his head then, growling low at the door Evelyn had just walked through. Later, Isaac sat alone in his truck, the night pressing in from all sides. His reflection in the windshield looked older than he remembered. Lines cut deeper, eyes heavier. He scratched absently behind Rocco's ears. "You smell it, too, don't you, boy?" he murmured. The dog pressed closer, warm and solid, a tether in the dark. Isaac exhaled, a sound half-sigh, half-growl. He'd fought too hard to keep Briarwood safe, too long to see it unravel now. But deep down, he knew the bones in the trunk were only the beginning, and whatever secret Evelyn Price was hiding, it was about to tear this town wide open. The storm that had teased the horizon finally broke overnight. Sheets of rain hammered Briarwood, flooding gutters and turning the narrow county roads into streams of muddy water. Sheriff Isaac Ward sat at his kitchen table, sipping bitter coffee while the thunder rolled. His house was too quiet. It had been since Ruth left 3 years ago, taking their daughter with her to her sister's place 2 towns over. He still hadn't forgiven himself for letting that happen. Rocco sat by the window, eyes fixed on the swaying trees, ears alert even against the roar of the storm. The dog's presence steadied him. The phone rang. Isaac answered on the second ring. "You sitting down?" Deputy Marla Kane's voice was taut, stripped of its usual sarcasm. "State Lab got back to me. Preliminary ID on the bones. Isaac closed his eyes briefly. Go on. They're human, juvenile. At least 3 separate sets of remains. 2 male, 1 female. Ages between 6 and 10. A silence opened between them, broken only by the hiss of static over the line. God help us, Isaac muttered. There's more, Marla said. Teeth marks. Consistent with human dentition, not animal. The words hit Isaac harder than the thunder outside. He gripped the receiver so tight it creaked. You're telling me someone ate those kids? I'm telling you that's what the lab found. Marla's voice cracked. And I'm telling you we got a monster walking around Briarwood. By mid-morning, the storm had passed, leaving the town washed but unsettled. The streets glistened, steam rising where sun touched asphalt. Isaac parked his truck outside the mayor's office, the unease in his gut heavier than his badge. Mayor Evelyn Price received him in her paneled office, blinds drawn tight despite the sunlight outside. She poured herself a glass of water, but offered him none. You've spoken to the state lab, she said flatly. Isaac studied her carefully. Then you already know. Evelyn sipped delicately, then set the glass down. I know enough to understand the danger of hysteria. Do you? Hysteria? Isaac's temper flared. We got 3 murdered kids in the back of a goddamn sedan, gnawed on like carcasses. You want me to hide that? I want you to contain it. Evelyn shot back. If word spreads that children have been cannibalized, she stopped herself, swallowing. For the first time, Isaac saw her composure crack, just slightly. Why do I feel like you've heard something like this before? Isaac asked, voice low. Evelyn's eyes flicked away. A long pause. Then she said, there are stories. Old ones. Things we don't speak of outside certain circles. But stories have a way of feeding on themselves. I won't add kindling to that fire. Isaac leaned forward, his jaw tight. What kind of stories? Evelyn met his gaze, still returning to her eyes. The kind you'd be better off not chasing. Outside, Isaac lit a cigarette with shaking hands. He hadn't smoked in years, but the craving came back with vengeance. Rocco, watching from the truck's backseat, nose pressed the glass, fogging it with his breath. Isaac thought of the children's bones, thought of the teeth marks, thought of his own daughter, safe, for now, miles away. He flicked the cigarette into the gutter, climbed back into the truck, and started the engine. We're chasing it anyway, boy. Rocco barked once, as if in agreement. That evening, Isaac and Marla sat in the back booth of Murphy's Diner, the only place in town where the coffee was worse than the sheriff's office, but the gossip was better. The neon sign buzzed weakly outside, casting their faces in red light. Marla leaned across the table. We're missing something. Whoever dumped those bones, they weren't panicked. They weren't sloppy. That car had been parked there a while. Whoever it was, they wanted us to find it. Isaac stirred his coffee absently. A message? Exactly. But for who? The waitress topped off their cups and left without a word. The diner was half empty, save for a pair of truckers at the counter and old Mrs. Delaney knitting in the corner booth. Marla lowered her voice further. I pulled some files. Back in '89, 2 kids went missing from Briarwood. Never found. Parents swore the sheriff back, then didn't push hard enough. And guess who the deputy was at the time? Isaac's stomach nodded. Evelyn Price's husband. Bingo. And rumor was, she leaned on the department to shut it down, said it would ruin the town's reputation. Isaac's coffee tasted suddenly bitterer than before. He remembered Evelyn's carefully chosen words earlier, the crack in her composure. She's hiding more than stories, he said. Marla nodded grimly. Question is, what's she protecting and why? That night, Isaac drove past the edge of town, Rocco restless in the back. The rain had left the woods slick, branches dripping like veins bleeding into the soil. He turned down a dirt road, leading to the old quarry, now overgrown and forgotten. This was where he'd been told the '89 search had ended. Deputies combed the woods for days, but nothing turned up, nothing official. Anyway, Rocco leapt from the truck as soon as Isaac opened the door, nose pressed to the ground, tail stiff. He pulled Isaac deeper into the trees, paws splashing through mud. The dog stopped suddenly near a cluster of moss-covered rocks. He barked, sharp and insistent. Isaac's flashlight beam caught something half-buried. A rusted tin box, edges eaten away by years of rain. Isaac pried it open with his knife. Inside lay photographs, grainy Polaroids, water damaged but clear enough to make his heart stop. Children, 3 of them, tied to chairs in what looked like a basement, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. And standing behind them, blurred but unmistakable in outline, was a man. Isaac's blood froze. He knew that shape, broad shoulders, crooked jaw. It was Henry Mallory, the mall's night security guard. Isaac slammed the box shut, his pulse roaring in his ears. He scooped it under his arm, yanked Rocco's leash, and headed back toward the truck. Every shadow fell heavier, every branch a claw reaching for him. When he reached town, Marla was waiting at his house. He dropped the box onto the table. She flipped through the photos, her face draining of color. "Mallory," she whispered. Isaac nodded. "We bring him in tonight." But Henry Mallory wasn't at his post. The mall's office was dark, the chair empty, the monitors black. They found his trailer on the outskirts of Briarwood. The door was ajar, creaking in the night wind. Isaac went in first, gun drawn, Rocco tied aside. The smell hit immediately. Rot, metallic, and sour. The kind of smell that clings to your clothes. Inside, the trailer was a shrine of madness. Newspaper clippings taped the walls. Missing children from across the state. Bones scattered on shelves like trophies. And in the center of the room, a table set with plates, knives, and forks. Every one of them stained. But Henry Mallory was gone. On the table lay a note, scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Not me. Never me. She made me watch. She made us all watch." Marla looked at Isaac, her hands trembling. "She? Who the hell is he talking about?" Isaac didn't answer. His mind had already supplied the name. Mayor Evelyn Price. Isaac stood outside the trailer. Rain began to fall again, soaking his shoulders. His cigarette burned low between his fingers. He thought of Evelyn's refusal to speak, her insistence on silence, her husband's involvement in the old case, the cracks in her composure, and now Mallory's note. Rocco whined softly, pressing against his leg. Isaac dropped the cigarette into the mud and looked toward the dark silhouette of town. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice rough, "we pay her a visit." The morning came with a low mist that blanketed Briarwood, the kind of fog that seemed to swallow sound. Sheriff Isaac Ward stood on the courthouse steps, waiting for the mayor. Rocco sat at his side, rigid, his nose twitching as though he sensed a storm in the air that had nothing to do with weather. Deputy Marla Kane leaned against the railing, her hand resting casually near her holster. "She's late," she muttered. "She'll come," Isaac replied, though his voice carried no conviction. Evelyn Price didn't strike him as the kind of woman to run. But then again, he'd been wrong about people before. At last, the echo of heels clicked through the mist. Evelyn emerged from the shadows like a figure from a stage play, composed, elegant, every hair in place. Her gray suit fit her like armor. "Sheriff." "Deputy," she said, her voice even. "I trust this is urgent, dragging me out at dawn." Isaac didn't bother with niceties. He held up the rusted tin box, its contents sealed in evidence bags. "You want to explain why your husband's deputy file led me to this?" For the briefest second, Evelyn's face betrayed her, a tightening around the mouth, a flicker in her eyes. But then the mask slid back on. "I don't know what that is," she said coolly. Isaac stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't lie to me. Those kids, those photographs. Henry Mallory's trailer. He says you made him watch." Marla bristled. You knew all along." Evelyn drew in a slow breath, then let it out. "You want the truth, Sheriff? The truth will bury this town deeper than any lie." "Try me," Isaac said. She hesitated, then motioned them inside the courthouse. The corridors were empty, the air stale. They entered her office, the blinds drawn tight. Evelyn closed the door, then finally spoke. "In 1989, when those children disappeared, it wasn't my husband who failed. It was me. I told him to stand down, to stop digging. Isaac's jaw tightened. Why? Because I'd already seen what he was chasing. Marla leaned forward. What do you mean, seen? Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. There was a gathering, out by the quarry. My husband was invited. He thought it was politics, backroom deals. But it wasn't. It was older, darker. Families that built this town, they kept something alive. A tradition. Isaac's stomach churned. You're telling me there's a cult in Briarwood? Evelyn's gaze hardened. Not a cult. A pact. Sacrifice to keep the town prosperous. Livestock at first. Then, her voice cracked for the first time. Then children. Always children no one would miss. Or, so they told themselves. Marla's face paled. And you went along with it? I was young. Stupid. I thought I was protecting Briarwood. Protecting myself. But once you see it, once you've tasted the fear in that room, there's no unseeing it. Isaac's fist clenched. So you silenced it. You let kids die. Evelyn's eyes glistened, though her voice remained steady. I've been silencing it for 35 years. Every mayor before me did the same. Henry Mallory was one of the witnesses. We all were. And witnesses carry shame like chains. That's why he broke. That's why he left you that message. Isaac stepped back, bow rising in his throat. He looked at Marla, who was trembling with rage. You're telling me the bones in that trunk, they're part of this pact? Isaac asked. Evelyn didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any confession. The office suddenly felt suffocating. Isaac turned on his heel, storming out into the hall. Rocco trotted after him, nails clicking on the floor. Marla followed, her voice sharp. We arrest her. Now! Isaac stopped. His instincts screamed yes. But something inside him, that quiet, gnawing voice, whispered caution. If she's telling the truth, Marla, it's bigger than her. Bigger than Mallory. You think she's the only one? You think the whole council isn't on it? Marla's jaw worked. Then what the hell do we do? Isaac stared out the window, the mist outside thinning as the sun rose. He thought of the bones, the photographs, his daughter's face. We find where it happens, and we end it. That night, Isaac parked at the edge of the quarry. Rocco paced in the back seat, restless. Marla sat beside him, loading her weapon with slow, deliberate motions. You really think they'll come here? She asked. Isaac nodded. It started here. It'll end here. They waited in silence. Hours passed. The woods creaked. Owls called. The air heavy with damp earth. Then, just past midnight, headlights pierced the trees. A caravan of cars wound down the dirt road. Isaac killed the engine, ducked low. Through the windshield, he saw them. Figures stepping out, dressed in dark coats despite the warmth of the night. And at the center of them, Mayor Evelyn Price. They carried lanterns, their light flickering over the mossy rocks. And with them, dragged between two men, was a boy, 10, maybe 11, a gag tied across his mouth, his eyes wide with terror. Marla cursed under her breath. Jesus Christ. Isaac's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles whitened. Rocco growled low, vibrating with fury. Isaac and Marla moved silently, weapons drawn, creeping through the brush until they had a clear view of the gathering. Evelyn raised her lantern. Tonight we keep Briarwood safe. Tonight we honor the pact. The boy thrashed, muffled screams piercing the night. Isaac's pulse pounded in his ears. He thought of his daughter again, her small hand once tucked in his. The idea of her in that boy's place snapped something inside him. Now, he whispered. They burst from the trees. Sheriff's office. Drop him. Chaos erupted. Figures scattered, some fleeing into the woods, others drawing knives. Evelyn didn't move. She simply watched, her face carved from stone. Isaac fired into the air. Let him go. One of the men shoved the boy forward. The child stumbled into Marla's arms. She pulled him behind her, aiming steady at the crowd. Rocco lunged, teeth flashing, bringing another man down with a scream. Isaac advanced, weapon trained on Evelyn. It ends tonight, he growled. Evelyn tilted her head, almost pitying. You think killing me will end it? Sheriff, you don't understand. You never did. It's not about us. It's about what's beneath. Her words chilled him, but before he could respond, one of the men rushed him. Isaac fired, once, twice. The man dropped. The rest fled into the darkness, their lanterns bobbing like dying stars. Evelyn remained, unflinching. You'll regret this, she whispered. Isaac stepped closer, his gun steady. Maybe, but you won't live to see it. Her eyes flickered with something, fear or maybe recognition. Then a single shot rang out. Evelyn Price crumpled to the ground, blood spreading across her gray suit. Marla lowered her smoking gun, her chest heaving. She wasn't going to stop. Isaac stared at the fallen mayor, the woman who had ruled Briarwood with iron and silence. For the first time, she looked small. The boys sobbed quietly in the truck as they drove him back to town. Rocco lay across the seat, head resting on Isaac's leg, as if guarding both of them. Marla broke the silence. What happens when word gets out? Isaac kept his eyes on the road. We tell the truth. No more lies. No more packs. And the others? The ones who ran. They'll surface. Fear makes people sloppy. We'll catch them. Marla nodded, though her face was pale. And if Evelyn was right, if it's about something beneath, Isaac's grip tightened on the wheel. Then we fight that too. In the weeks that followed, Briarwood was never the same. The boy's family reclaimed him, tears and prayers spilling into the sheriff's office. Word leaked, as it always does. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some called it a cult. Others whispered about demons, bargains, shadows older than the town itself. Businesses shuttered. Families packed up and left. Those who stayed walked with eyes over their shoulders. But the killings stopped. The bones stopped appearing. The night grew quieter. Isaac knew it wasn't over. Evil rarely ends. It just burrows deeper, waiting. Still, as he sat on his porch one evening, Rocco at his feet, the sky painted in bruised purples of dusk, he allowed himself a rare moment of peace. He thought of the boy's tear-streaked face when he was reunited with his parents. He thought of his own daughter, safe somewhere beyond Briarwood's reach. Rocco shifted, resting his head on Isaac's boot. The weight was grounding. Isaac exhaled. The sound carried away on the evening breeze. We did what we could. Boy, maybe it's enough. The dog sighed, closing his eyes. And for the first time in a long while, Sheriff Isaac Ward let the quiet settle without fear.